Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. As you know, given the fact this is a photography channel, I talk about cameras a lot. And I talk about Fujifilm cameras a lot as they're what I use to take all my photos or my videos for both professional use and for just personal messing about. However, really weirdly, whilst I talk about cameras like the X-T5, X100VI before it, there's a camera that I use on a weekly and daily basis that I haven't spoken about. And I don't think a lot of people speak about this camera within Fujifilm's lineup. So I wanted to do a bit of a video today talking about it and whether it might be a camera for you to worth considering if maybe you're considering an X-T5 or a slightly different camera, whether you're looking for maybe a hybrid shooter for video and photography work. Maybe you're looking for something that can do YouTube content like I'm doing, professional work for both video and photo. So I thought we'd talk about that camera today. And the camera in question, obviously, as you know, because you've clicked on the title of this video, is the Fujifilm X-S20. Now, I'm actually using it to record right now, which I think for the whole of this video is a really good example of autofocus, the colors, the sensor, everything that you're getting out of this camera or that I'm getting out of this camera. In this video, we're going to run over the good / kind of what I like about this camera. Now, I'll caveat by saying I primarily use this as a video camera, a little bit as a kind of backup photo camera, which was kind of the point why I bought this camera, but it's mainly been video. So I'm looking at it from that standpoint. I'm also someone who is a freelance videographer, so I'm using this camera for all my client shoots at the moment. So I think I've got a pretty good perspective on this camera from that standpoint. We're also going to talk about bugbears, common issues that people have had with this camera. So I've done a bit of Googling. I'm going to run through some issues that people are having with this camera or have had, and I'll give my opinions on that. And I'll also talk about things that I dislike. We'll also talk about the kind of lineup dilemma. Obviously, Fujifilm have tons of cameras in their lineup, so it's kind of hard to slot this camera in. And if you're thinking about getting this camera, it's very difficult to know where it fits in the lineup. So we'll talk about some cameras that are a bit more expensive, some that are slightly different. So hopefully if you're thinking about buying this, maybe there's a different camera you should buy, or maybe this is perfect for you. And then lastly, we'll run over a quick conclusion where I'll try and wrap all of this up, and we'll finally discuss what I think about this camera, whether maybe I'm going to be keeping this camera or what the kind of future holds for me using it. And then maybe you can give your own perspective on that. So starting off the bat, what do I really like about this camera? The grip is a big one for me. As someone who has used the X100VI and the X-T5, they don't have amazing grips. The X-T5 has got a better grip, but I think it could certainly be a lot better. It's comfortable, but if you're using it all day without a sling or something, it's not that comfy. I'm glad to say on the X-S20, it's got a very, very comfortable grip. Now, this is fantastic for obviously photography, but it's also really good for videography when you're trying to hold the camera really steady, maybe not use a gimbal, things like that. So it's really, I've really appreciated having that grip. And I would say it's a more comfortable camera to use than my X-T5, which, you know, and I use my X-T5 on a daily basis. Another thing about that is the fact that you get Fujifilm's bigger battery. This is really awesome, especially as a videographer, because having bigger batteries just means you don't have to swap them as easily or as often, I should say. They last longer and I just get more out of them. So I don't need to be carrying as many batteries around with me. Obviously, because they're bigger, the ones I do carry around with me are bigger, but that's not really ever an issue. And I really do not miss having the smaller batteries of the X100VI and all those cameras. I think a huge one on this camera that I'm recording on right now is the video specs. So currently I'm looking at getting the Fujifilm X-H2S. However, this camera has basically the same sensor, and you can shoot 6.2 open gate, which I really didn't think I'd enjoy, but I'm shooting in it right now. I really didn't think I'd like using or needed, but I've really enjoyed having that extra real estate. It's been really useful for client work, just to kind of have that option if I do want to shoot differently or change aspect ratios. You can shoot 4K 60, which again is really nice. Not 4K 120, but 4K 60 has been really, really good for a lot of B-roll shots that I do with clients, where it's nice to get those slow-mos and it does look really, really good. And like I said, the colors that I'm getting out of this, I'll pop up on the screen now the settings I'm using for this camera. I'm actually, because you get the same settings out of this, I'm using the same on this camera. But yeah, I'll pop it up on screen so you know like the Kodaks and everything that I'm using. I think another thing I really like, and it's, again, this is more video orientated, but if some photographers do prefer this, is the fully articulating screen. This is really nice if you're a vlogger, or what I'm doing right now. I'm not using an external monitor. I'm literally using the flip out screen. It's very different to the one that you get on the X-T5 that obviously doesn't flip out. You just get it sort of articulating around like this. It's sort of like a 3-way tilt or something. For photography, I prefer the 3-way tilt. I think it's more discreet when you're using it. I find it more convenient, and I like when I'm shooting portraits. I just think it's a better package for photography. However, there are instances where if you were trying to get lower or get different angles, I can see why people like the flip out screen for photography. For videography, however, this camera is a complete winner over something like this. Just the ability to flip the screen or articulate it. Even if you think about it from, let's say you're filming with a client and you say, oh, let me flip the camera and this is what you look like. It's really nice to have those little interactions, and it's nice just to be able to adjust it. So the fully articulating flip out screen is another huge thing I really like about this camera. And I'm actually talking about batteries. I need to change my battery because it is dying. So 1 second. That's great so far, everything I've said. Talking about all the great things about it. And ultimately, a lot of these Fujifilm cameras, bar the actual bodies and the dials and things like that, they are very similar cameras. You're going to get a very similar experience or a sort of end process depending on what you're doing. I think it's just about trying to really think about it and niche down. And it may be that you need to go through 2 or 3 different cameras to kind of find the one that suits you. And I think with Fujifilm, that is particularly true. So saying that, I want to talk about some of the things that I do dislike about this camera. The viewfinder is the first one. I think, especially on a camera like this, I guess because it is looked at as a hybrid shooter, I understand the point of having the viewfinder. I have never used the viewfinder, but then I'm not someone who uses the viewfinder a lot on my X-T5. I barely use a viewfinder, even in sunny conditions. I don't know why. I just like using the back screen more than anything. I feel like I can kind of see in front of me whilst looking at the back screen, and it's just something I prefer. But obviously in harsh sunlight or conditions that the screen is not working for, the viewfinder is better. So it's nice to have, but I just don't think it's particularly clear viewfinder, and I'm just not a particular fan of viewfinders in general, even though they exist for a good reason. No weather sealing is another one. Now, I kind of get why it hasn't got weather sealing, because if you were looking for that, Fujifilm have other premium cameras out there if you're looking for weather sealing. And it is a reason why I'm looking at other Fujifilm cameras, more expensive cameras, obviously, because weather sealing would be really nice to have in certain conditions, but this camera does not have that. It hasn't been an issue so far for me yet. So I've got one client that is an exterior cleaning company, and obviously you're getting mark and spray, and I also live in the UK, so it does rain and shower at times. And I haven't had issues yet, but it doesn't fill me with confidence, the fact it hasn't got weather sealing. But then I've been using the X-T5, which I don't know if it's meant to have weather sealing, in like snow and sleet and all kind of other weather, and it's been absolutely fine. So I would expect this camera to be all right. It's got less top dials and less going on in a way, so it might be a better camera, but yeah, no weather sealing is a bit of a bummer. Another one, and this is something that before moving to the X-T5, I didn't think I kind of needed or would like, but is having a dual SD card slot. I think a huge thing for this is really having that backup. So I'm actually shooting a wedding this weekend, and I'll be shooting with my X-T5. and another camera that I'm not going to talk about yet. But having dual SD card just means that I can have that backup. So if the car corrupts, I have a backup, which is really nice. And then the way I use it on a daily basis is it's just nice to have that 1-2 slot. So if I fill up this with video or photo, I've got that other SD card. Or I actually like to shoot with micro SD because a lot of my other devices, like DJI devices, use micro SD. So it's kind of a security to go, oh, I've forgotten a micro SD card, or I've got one in my X-T5 I can use. So it's really nice to have that dual slot. And I know, again, Fujifilm's higher end cameras have that, and it's something that I didn't think I'd need or want, but especially being more professional with my work, it's needed. I think if you're an amateur, it's really not an issue, but if you're trying to move into being more of a pro or just even a YouTuber, it's nice to have. It really is handy, and it's a shame that it's not on this camera, but I understand it because, again, Fujifilm have more expensive cameras in their lineup that do have them. Okay, so I've done some Googling on common faults with the X-S20 to try and kind of talk about, like, we're in 2026 now and this camera has been out for a few years. So are there issues that I found? You know, do these common issues still exist now? And if so, how much of an issue have they been for, again, someone who uses this camera primarily for video and primarily for professional use? I mean, I'm using it for actual paying clients, which is mad to say. So if you're hunting over on Reddit, a big one with this camera is overheating, especially when you're doing 4K 60. I like to try and shoot 4K 60 a lot just to give me that option for slow motion. If I'm doing talking head stuff like I'm doing now, I just shoot 4K 30, but 4K 60 is what I use for like action shots or B-roll. I've definitely had overheating with this camera, and I've definitely had it turn itself off. I had it once with a client I was doing a hero video for, and she was a masseuse, and it was a very warm room because obviously you have kind of got a unclothed person there, so you need them to be warm. If we've got clothes on, so it was very warm, and the camera was getting very warm, and it did have issues. I've had it a few times. Normally, if I'm outside shooting with clients, not a problem. Or if I'm shooting 4K 30, I mean, I was shooting with a client last weekend for over an hour, 4K 30, and I was absolutely fine. I didn't have, or 6.2K 30, I should say, and the camera was absolutely fine. There was a 10-minute break between, like a 10-minute break between the half an hour, but it was fine. So it is an issue. It is something to think about. But on such a small body, you're going to have the same issue with any camera, unless it's got like a built-in fan, like an FX3 or something like that from Sony. There is a workaround. You can get external fans that fit on the back of like where the sensor and the hottest point of the camera is. Fuji do their own first party, but you can get other ones from like Newer and K&F and things like that. And I know when I was using a Sony camera that also had overheating problems, sticking on one of those little fans, basically you can run the camera for as long as the battery will last. You really don't need to worry about it. So yes, it's an issue, but if it's really an issue you keep coming into, or it keeps reoccurring, there's a really simple fix for it. Or maybe you want to think about getting a different camera if you don't want to attach an external fan. So yeah, something to think about. So autofocus is another one. I think people bash on the autofocus of Fujifilm just because it's basically not as good as Sony, but then no other camera brand at the moment is as good as Sony. So I don't think it's really something you can bash them for. There's definitely some quirks, and with these new sensors in these Fujifilm cameras, they're definitely a lot better than the older ones. The issues that I've had sometimes when I'm filming like this, and I'm using like face tracking, it will like hunt or it'll like breathe. There is a bit of that. I think it's more when I'm further away, and I've noticed it a few times when I'm doing walking shots with clients. You just get, there's a bit of breathing going on with it. It seems to be in focus, but it's just sort of fluctuating. It can't make its mind up a little bit. Obviously, if I just shoot to like manual focus or more traditional autofocus, it's not too bad. But yeah, it's that continuous focus. It's got some quirks. It seems the more updates that are coming out for this camera, the better it's getting. And that's the same for the X-T5 and the X100VI when I was using that. So I think it's an issue with all Fujifilm cameras with the X-Trans 5 sensor, but they do seem to be improving it. It's definitely something I think if Fujifilm come out with a new sensor down the line. I think realistically they need to nail these quirks aren't an issue, but I think with the next generation that come out, they really need to just ace it. Nothing special, but it just needs to work. So for professional use, it happens maybe 5% of the time. It's maybe an issue, but I'm conscious of it, so I know that it might happen. So it's not really a problem. Again, for most people, it's probably never going to be an issue, but I use this camera a lot, especially for video work, so I am looking out for it, making sure that I don't have an issue with it. Run over the kind of Fujifilm lineup dilemma. Now, I can't run over every single camera, but there's two cameras that I can kind of compare it to and talk about in terms of where the X-S20 kind of fits in and maybe which camera you'd be better getting depending on what you're kind of primarily looking for. Now, a really easy camera for me to compare to is obviously the X-T5 because interchangeable lens, and I use this camera a lot. That's kind of where the similarities end between these two cameras. This camera is obviously the kind of traditional dials at the top where you're changing your ISO and your shutter speed and your exposure. With the Fujifilm, I know they've got a name for it, but basically it's more kind of you're setting up for custom dials. That's the main dial you've got on the camera, which is really good, again, for professional work when you're trying to flick through. So I've got different modes for 6.2, 30 open gate, and then I've got 4K 60 because I do a lot of like reels, so it's kind of vertical shots, and then I've got a 4K 30, and then I've got a few raw profile set up for photography. So it's good for that. However, you're definitely more detached from the experience. It's more like a traditional camera, where this is a nicer camera. Again, obviously the X-T5 has got a bigger sensor, 40 megapixels, so it's nicer for that. However, for burst photography, you're getting about 20 frames on the electronic shutter, and the X-S20 you're getting 30, so it kind of depends. For low light stuff, because it's got a lower megapixel sensor, I found that the X-S20 is better, especially at higher ISOs. That's something that I've found. I think if you're primarily looking to do photography with a little bit of hybrid video thrown in there, or just like some kind of, so I like to almost do like live photos with my film recipes or whatever I'm doing. X-T5 is a better camera. I mean, it's a more expensive camera, but it's a better camera probably for most people out there. If you're looking for that hybrid shooter or more of a video focus shooter, maybe you're a content creator or starting out as a videographer or something like that, the X-S20 is a better workhorse. You'll just get more out of it and you'll think more of it as a tool. This feels more premium, heavier. X-S20 feels more like a tool you'd use for work, if that makes sense. Obviously, the other big camera that I don't have on me right now, however, it is something I'm being sent by Fujifilm and also looking at purchasing, is the HS2S. HS2S, yes. I find these names really confusing. This camera is obviously the beefiest sort of APS-C-based sensor camera that Fujifilm do, and it's a main competitor really to the X-S20. It's basically the X-S20 but better in every way. You've got weather sealing, you've got CF Express Type B, so you're getting like 40 shots, 40 frames per second without like any stuttering, so far better. You've got a stacked 26 megapixel sensor instead of the 26 megapixel sensor, so it's crazy sharp and you never have any issues with any like blurriness or wobbliness. So if you ever notice with your camera, if you swing it around in video, it can sometimes be like wavy. You don't get that issue with the HS2S, something like that. Did I mention weather sealing? I might have. So and you get, obviously on the top of the custom dials, you get 7 custom dials instead of 4, I think it is on this camera. I think it's 4. So it's just a better, beefier camera. It's sort of heavier, feels better. You've got better access to external ports. It's definitely a step up. I think the only reason you'd get one over the other is probably price range. Obviously, there is quite a price range between the two, over £1,000, I think it is, unless you're looking used. So yeah, that's really that's a super short breakdown. I'll do a longer breakdown when I get the camera in hand. But they're the two cameras that I think this camera competes with There's other cameras that maybe this camera competes with, but they're two that I can speak about freely. Like always, I've got to try and wrap these videos up a little bit. I can't keep rambling on forever. So what's my kind of thoughts about this camera? It's a camera I've used for over a year. Would I get one? Yes, I would get one. I'd definitely maybe bump and get the HS2S and maybe have the XS20 as like a backup B-roll camera or just like a personal videographer camera, just purely because I'm doing a lot more videography and like photography where I think I could use the faster shutter and get more frames, the 40 frames per second. So me personally, I would spruce for the more expensive camera. But however, for most of you, if you're looking for a hybrid shooter or just maybe a backup camera to your main photography or video camera, I think this is fantastic. I think it's really slept on as a camera, and I think people really forget about it, and because Fujifilm got so many cameras. But if you are considering one, I would definitely try one out. You've got Fujifilm's trial service, or there may be other manufacturers that could send you the camera out to try, but definitely give it a go, because it's a camera that not enough people, I think, talk about and doesn't get enough recognition that it deserves. But let me know what you think in the comments. Have you used this camera? Have you thought about using this camera? Is there a reason why you wouldn't use this camera? Please do give me your thoughts below. And apologies for rambling on, but thank you all for listening.